Rampage has been made 20-1. Now, there are 8 more horses.
And the second half of the field, Broad Brush, the winner of the Wood Memorial, is at 10-1. Badger Land is at 3-1 and is the second choice. Wheatley Hall at 30-1. Snow Chief, 6-5 favorite. Bachelor Beau, 15-1. Groovy at 30-1. Zabaleta at 12-1, as is Bobby Forbes. And of course, when you come to the Kentucky Derby, every trainer, every owner thinks that his colt has an equal chance to win, but Sharon, some are more equal than others.
Well, absolutely, and people all over the country are placing their bets legally or perhaps just casually on the horse that they think is going to win the Kentucky Derby. And most of the money and the hopes will be pinned on 2 horses. There's almost no doubt about who will be the first 2 favorites at Derby post time. Their second choice, Badgerland, winner of the Flamingo Stakes at Hialeah, and Snow Chief, winner of the Florida and Santa Anita Derbies. In addition to their favoritism, the 2 share a characteristic. Neither has actually raced in 4 weeks. No Derby winner in the last 30 years has had such a long layoff from the racetrack. Snow Chief's trainer Mel Studi doesn't like the implied criticism when people point this out.
I believe I'm a horse trainer. That's what I'm paid for, and I believe anybody can race a horse into condition, and I'm trying to keep this horse at his best as long as I can. And if I'm wrong, I guess I'm wrong, but I believe I'm right.
Badgerland's trainer Wayne Lucas also believes he's right. Always a man to challenge tradition, he planned the horse's schedule months ago.
It seems to fit this horse. He had 3 mile and an eighth races in a row, so I would be doubt very seriously if he's going to be a short horse. I think the 28 days since the Flamingo are important to him. I think in this particular horse's case, he needed that.
No trainer will claim that he's scared of the competition, but both like their chances, as well they should. Lucas says the field has several interesting challengers.
I think it's a good race. It's a race with a lot of interest. It's a handicapper's race. I think the people that are really hardcore handicappers are going to have some fun with this one because we got a little bit of everything.
Mel Studi says there may be competition for Snow Chief, but not enough to warrant 16 entries. Does he consider it an insult that his horse didn't scare many other horses away?
Yeah, I do take that as a little bit of an insult. I was hoping there was only going to be 10 because then I could get more seats for the Derby, but I'm going to just have to take my chance with the big field.
Well, Mike Battaglia not only will call the race tomorrow, here's the voice that you hear, he also is the man who established the morning line odds. You did make these 2 horses the favorite, as everybody agrees. You should have put a big gap between them and the third choice.
Well, and I really don't think that's any knock to the other horses. I think that's just an indication of how impressive Snow Chief and Badgerland have been.
About the only knock anybody's been able to come up with against these horses on their record is that 4-week layoff for each of them. The trainers say it's their business, it doesn't make a difference. What do you think?
Well, I think that if you look at Snow Chief's past performances, you'll find that he raced once in December, once in January, February, March, and April. So he had a month between races. He won all of those starts. I think that that may be what the best thing is for Snow Chief. I think that Wayne Lucas is one of the premier trainers in the country, and I'm not about to knock him. So I think that both trainers, Mel Studi and Wayne Lucas, know exactly what they're doing coming into the Derby.
Would you say even if it's a tiny bit of a mistake, it's not enough to bring the rest of the field back to them, or bring them back to the rest of the field, I guess?
Well, I would say that on their past performances right now, those 2 stick out, and I don't see any mistakes being made by either trainer.
Well, Mike is going to be commenting the rest of the half hour with us on some of the other horses, some interesting developments. We're going to talk about the English horse, and we will talk about the drug situation, which is interesting as well, Greg. So we will get to comments from the horse's mouth in a manner of speaking about the betting line odds of these horses.
I like the comment by Mel Studi, the trainer of Snow Chief. When asked how much he liked his horse, he said, if Snow Chief could cook, I'd leave my wife. But that's Mel Studi's opinion. Of course, this is a premier event in thoroughbred racing, and as expected, tickets for this event are at a premium.
But in terms of fixed seating, some 46,000 seats that we have here at Churchill Downs, they've all been sold out.
Churchill Downs President Tom Meeker says the tickets that run from $350 to $5,000 a box have been spoken for, and for a long time. There is a waiting list, and money's not the only criteria for selection. The applicants considered are closely scrutinized.
Determine if they have made a contribution to Kentucky, or in the case of Churchill Downs, if they support our racing program.
Now, that doesn't mean you can't get a seat at the Derby this year. There were 2 ads printed in a national newspaper, both selling Derby tickets way above face value. Example, this ad offered $35 tickets for $160 each, $45 tickets for $250 each, and a $100 Derby Day box going for a cool $1,400. In short, these tickets are like gold, and the people at Churchill Downs are protecting them accordingly. But be aware, you can be in historic Churchill Downs on Derby Day at a much cheaper cost. $20 gets you into the infield. $30 puts you in the garden. Lots of pretty flowers to be seen, but like the infield, it doesn't provide much of a view for the main attraction, the horses. Tickets at whatever level certainly are not a deterrent. Officials here at Churchill Downs are expecting upwards of 100,000 people on Derby Day. When Sharon and Mike Battaglia and I return to Churchill Downs, a look at a pretty good import and what's in a name as we continue our preview of the 1986 Kentucky Derby.
The horse who traveled the longest distance to be here, it would go to this one, Bold Arrangement, one of the best 2-year-olds in England last year. No horse has ever done quite what he's trying to do, win the Kentucky Derby after beginning his racing career in Europe. He was shipped to Kentucky 2 weeks ago and raced well to be third in the Bluegrass Stakes. While he'll be without his regular English rider, Bold Arrangement gets one of the best in the world, Chris McCarron, who arrived in Louisville early to gallop the horse. McCarron was impressed with the way Bold Arrangement handled the Churchill Downs surface. On race day, he'll be especially careful in the starting gate.
I know in the starting gate we're going to try and go without a man, without an assistant starter in there by his head, because in England, very few horses over there are handled by an assistant starter unless they're very fractious. In England, what they usually do is lead them in, and the assistant starter will walk under the front doors, will step under the front doors and go on out the gate that way. Whereas here, the man jumps up on the platform and goes out the back.
Trainer Clive Britton points out that Bold Arrangement is healthy and frisky in his new barn area and is well designed physically to handle the hard dirt track of Churchill Downs.
No, he's all racehorse. I mean, he doesn't carry anything he doesn't need, which for me, to race on dirt is more essential. You know, the heavier topped horses probably would hit the dirt too hard, you know.
But does he have a chance, this English turf horse, making the switch to American dirt in the biggest race of all?
I would train the horse at home, and if I didn't think he had any chance, I mean, it's probably cost about £30,000 to put this deal together, you know, which is, you know, a lot of money to invest in a race.
You know, Mike, that horse has impressed a lot of people. People like his handlers. They're very nice people, but it's an enormous task for a horse.
Well, it really is. And first of all, I'd have to say that I really respect those people for even attempting bringing a horse over from England and running him over 2 different racetracks in the span of 2 weeks. I think it's very, very tough to do. I also think that Bold Arrangement will definitely improve into the Derby. But I think that he's hooking a much, much tougher field in the Derby than he did in the Bluegrass, so I don't think he's going to improve enough to be a contender.
There's one thing that people sometimes forget is that he was a very top horse in Europe last year in England. He was one of their very best 2-year-olds.
Well, he was, and I saw the film on 2 of his races, Sharon, and in both of those races, very surprising. One race was at 7 furlongs, the other was at a mile. Now, in both of those races, Bold Arrangement was in front with a quarter of a mile to go, and he was run down. He was beaten. And then he comes over in the Bluegrass, comes from way back, and he closed ground. So a very, very different style of running he used here than he did in England.
Still, he's a very interesting horse, and if you're trying to pick your favorite right now, and you like things English, consider Bold Arrangement.
I would think so. Both Sharon and Mike are veterans of Kentucky Derbies here at Churchill Downs. For me, it's my second visit, and I truly believe that even if you're not a racing fan, everyone should visit Churchill Downs at least once. One of the interesting things you see walking through the Downs area is the people very studiously studying the names of the horses and checking out the names, and with very good reason. Sonny's Halo, Swale, Spendabuck, all interesting names. In fact, names are part of the fascination at a racetrack, any racetrack. Take, for instance, Snow Chief, this year's Derby favorite. He sounds like a winner. Or Bachelor Beau. Certainly there'll be more than just a few single men placing their bets on him. Wouldn't it be interesting if a horse's name reflected his or her owner's occupation? These horses are, no doubt, owned by doctors. Second opinion, and say, Bend Over isn't running until the 1st of next week. Lawyers had to be pleased when theirs ran 1, 2, 3. I Object, finishing 3rd behind Habeas Corpus and Double Jeopardy. Good-looking horse here, It's Your Water Pump, owned by a local auto mechanic. One federal judge could conceivably have his horses as an entry, sustained and overruled. And these beauties, on the other hand, and Waffle, You guessed it, owned by former politicians. What's in a name? Well, most everything, I suppose, and then again, maybe nothing at all. When we return to this 1986 preview of the Kentucky Derby, we will have a look at drugs.